Scallydandlers, it's Rose, and I'm here to do a quick tag. Well, I hope it'll be quick. There's quite a lot of questions for Tag Tuesday, and this is the self-aware reader tag, which was created just a week ago by Courtney, and she kindly tagged me in her original tag, and it's kind of flying around. And I think a couple of other people may have tagged me since, but yeah, thank you, Courtney, for coming up with a real goodie. Okay, question number one. What most draws you into a novel, makes you want to keep reading? Plot, character, writing style, atmosphere, or something else? Now, first thing I have to say is there is a something else for me that I would add to that list, and that is ideas, like the subject matter. That's as important as all those other things. Um, but which draws me in most? Well, I would say that writing style is the thing that is most likely to kind of really, um, yeah, get me caught up in a book swiftly and feel like, oh, I'm really enjoying this. I must read more of it. Having said that, it it's it's like writing style plus one or two of the other ones that's really going to do it for me. You can get away without some things if you've got. If you have some, imagine it like a kind of like a measuring jug, and you pour in a chunk that's style and a chunk that's plot and a chunk that's character. And as long as the combination of them hit a certain level, that book's a winner. But you don't necessarily have to have all of them every time. So, like, I really like W.G. Sebald, for example, and like some of his books, like Rings of Saturn, it's basically it's style plus atmosphere and not a lot and ideas. Say those three, and there isn't really much for plot. He just goes for a walk. There aren't really well, there's kind of people coming out. There's not like really like developed characters apart from him himself, I suppose. Yeah, so it's the combination. I was going to say that unless it's got a kind of satisfying style, it won't do for me. But there's two things I'm going to say about that. First is, I don't mean that it has to be some sort of highfalutin super literary style every time. It's about the right style for the kind of book, So, if it's a cozy mystery, you want a kind of cozy mystery style. Um, if yeah, I think you know what I mean. The other thing is that if the sort of ideas and sort of subject matter and so on of a novel, it seems funny to say subject matter, but I think you know what I mean. Um, if they are interesting enough, then I can cope with not such a great writing style. I'm thinking about things that I read in translation. Often, the style is a little bit clunky, and you're not sure whether it's not great translation or whether it was the original book. But I'm so interested in reading it that I sustain nonetheless. A good example would be The Cost of Sugar by Cynthia MacLeod that I read a little earlier this year. It's a book from Suriname. It's historical fiction. It's not like the most amazingly written book ever. The characters, some of them, they're kind of, there's some quite good characterization, and then it wobbles maybe or seems a little unrealistic. The plot is really engaging, but then you get some sort of bizarre, perhaps coincidences, or the structure falls down. But it, reading about a kind of vividly set story in a really interesting period of the history of a country that I've never known about, and there's obviously a passionate interest of the author, that will carry me through. If that makes yeah, that's it. So no simple answer to that first question. Question number two: what is a conventional trope that will immediately turn you off in your reading experience with a novel or a story? Well, again, I haven't got a clear cut answer for this because I don't think there is any one specific thing that will turn me off. Like, there's some things that are real sort of cliches, but a good writer can pull them off all the same. They don't seem like that if the style is strong enough. Yeah. Um, yeah, but there are cliches that do irritate me, and I think the thing that probably annoys me most is and this is going to seem illogical when I said I really like ideas in books, but the thing that annoys me most is when it feels like a writer's kind of landed on an issue and wants to write about that, so they don't really write a proper novel or story, that because they're just trying to kind of hammer, I don't know, when it's a bit crude and they're just hammering away at this point that they want to make. Or the classic example for me is Jodi Picoult. Now, she's a really popular writer. I know people love her novels and, find them really satisfying. But it feels to me and I've stopped reading them now, but like the few that I read, it felt like she decided, oh, I'm going to write a novel about adoption, or I don't know, I'm going to write a novel about uh, oh, surrogacy, or having a baby so that they can be an organ donor for their elder sister, or and yeah, it's almost as if it's like, oh yeah, tick that one off, tick that one off. Oh, hate it, big turn off. Question number 3, what most appeals to you when reading non-fiction and makes you want to keep reading? Well, style again, but it's something about it's a combination of topic and style, and writing that is appropriate to the type of book it is. So, if it's an academic book, I want it to be more academic style. I might not choose to read a textbook these days, but I'm happy to read something that's kind of a little drier and more serious if it's an interesting topic and it feels like that's being done with integrity, sort of intellectual integrity, if that makes sense. But on the other hand, I can really enjoy a book that, I mean, non-fiction is such a broad church, isn't it? There's so many things that count as non-fiction, but a book that's got a really strong authorial voice and is in the first person, and I mean, if it relies to some extent on factual information, I've got to know that that factual information is solid, properly researched, properly referenced. It's not going to satisfy me if I think it's all just sort of they've not really gone into it, and they've not checked the facts. And that's their job as writer to do that for me. I shouldn't have to do that. Good example for this, and he's a writer that I'm enthused about before, is Robert Macfarlane. Now, he writes non-fiction books that are very personal, that kind of have a kind of a strange mixture of kind of memoir and philosophy and history and natural history and geography. But if he says something happened or talks about some sort of geological feature or whatever, I don't need to go and check it. I can rely on the fact that he's done that properly. And if he says it, there'll be the evidence to back it up. So I can then enjoy his more sort of his musings and his ideas and his reactions to things that are based on that. Yeah. What is a convention, this is question number 4, or trope in non-fiction that will turn you off? Well, yeah, unreliable fact checking, I suppose. Too much supposition. Too. It's when people do that thing where they imagine perhaps what someone that they're writing about might have thought and felt. You get that sometimes in biography. So a book that I've been talking about a bit in relation to Victober, which was The Housekeeper's Tale, by Tessa Bowes, and I really enjoyed this book, but it was absolutely not a top-rated book for me because she does just too much of just imagining what someone might have thought and felt without enough to back it up. Yeah, just slightly unsatisfactory in that respect. Even worse are those non-fiction writers that add 2 and 2 together and make 6. For example, at one point they'll say, well, because of this, I think that we can probably assume that. Okay, and it's a bit of a dodgy sort of connection from this to that. And then later on they'll say, well, as we've agreed that that is true, now we can extrapolate from that to this and this. Well, no, because the first thing was just like guesswork. So you can't keep that. Oh, really don't like it. Bit more rigor, please, even if it's something quite popular popular sciencey or popular history or a biography or whatever. Question number 5. Would you say you read more for pleasure and enjoyment or more to learn and exercise your brain? Now, I'm sorry, Courtney, but this is the wrong question. The question is, what gives you the most pleasure? Is it books that kind of just take you out of yourself and into some sort of alternative world? Is it books that sort of stretch you intellectually and challenge your thinking? And I'm going to refer you to Alfred did like a bit of a takeover on this channel and did a video about the types of fun, 7 different types of fun, and what they are and why we enjoy them, and how people kind of which are important is different to different people. We all have our different favoured mix of what we like in a game or a book that we enjoy, and yeah, so it's not like either or, as it were, between enjoyment and learning, if that, for me, yeah, because actually one of the kinds of fun for me is like challenge, mastery, discovery, that's, yeah, which kind of leads into the next answer, because the next question is, which type of books are you likely to rate more highly and enjoy more overall? Brain candy, pleasure and enjoyment books, or brain protein, learning and exercise books? Now, first thing to say is that rating books is a bit dubious, isn't it? But having said that, it's a kind of handy shorthand when you're trying to uh, record that you've read a book, and you maybe, I might want to go back later in the year and think, was that one I enjoyed? How much I remember that? And if I do rate it, that's going to help remind me. I might change my mind at that point according to how it's sort of grown since I read it, but it's a handy thing. But we don't put too much stock by sort of ratings in a way. But I think that it's not an either or, again, for similar reasons as I said before. So it's like I try and rate a book on whether it's good of its type. So like if it's a book that I'm kind of reading for enjoyment, I want it to be really enjoyable. If it's a book that I'm reading for sort of to find out more or to kind of challenge myself, then I want it to do that well. I might give 5 stars to a really smart, tight, well-written thriller. It's not perhaps, that's different from giving 5 stars to, I don't know, great work of literature, but it's good of its kind. I like a mixed diet of reading is the answer. Yeah. Question number 7. Do you have a sense early on whether or not the book you're reading will be a 5-star read or a book you'll really like? Has a book ever surprised you in this regard? Okay, well, putting aside whether we think stars are a bit, reductionist, this is a qualified no. Okay. I think really early on in a book, I generally know if I'm in like a safe pair of hands. If this author's going to kind of look after me and provide me with a satisfying whole. I think that I usually, pick that up fairly quickly. That's not the same as knowing if it's going to be like a 5-star read. Some books start really well and then they go downhill. Sometimes it seems a bit like people have done the creative writing course, and then they've spent ages and ages working on their first paragraph and their first chapter, and then the rest of the book hasn't had the same amount of attention maybe, or they've submitted it as a sort of like and got interest from a publisher and then sort of rushed through the rest of it. You must have read books where it's felt a bit like that. One for me recently, and although she's an experienced author, was Ghost Wall, which started so well with atmosphere and Northumbria, this sort of archaeological recreation going on, and then towards the end it just became completely ridiculous. Like farcical and unrealistic. And you thought, like, why did no one say, no, this isn't working at the editing stage? Ian McEwan is a classic author for doing that to me. I've almost lost patience with some of his books in that respect. Well, I like his novellas better for this reason. So, like, take Enduring Love. So his book Enduring Love has possibly the one of the best first chapters I've ever read in a novel. You know, it's technically perfect, I would say, and then all the rest of the book is a sort of case of diminishing returns subsequently. So, which brings me back to, no, you can't tell if it's going to be 5-star read at the beginning, because sometimes books uh, go sort of start here and go up, and other books start here and go down, and others are more of a roller coaster. There we go. I do think people are a bit too much into instant gratification now with books. You know, people say, "Oh, if it doesn't grab me in the first few pages," and I don't feel like that. I'm very much prepared to give books more time to satisfy. I think, although some classic authors were absolute masters or mistresses of the brilliant first line or first paragraph or first chapter, I think people in the past were willing to let something grow more gently, and that's not bad quality to have, really. Yeah. You know, like Dickens, he could rely on the fact that people were really looking forward to his book and were looking forward to the future instalments. He didn't have to make it absolutely grab you in line, because people, people would wait and anticipate and let something build. Hmm. Question number 8. Oh, I didn't really say if any books that surprised me, but oh, well, no, maybe I think I did. I think I did. Okay, question number 8. Considering books that you've rated 5 stars in the past, or if you don't rate, that you really loved, do you think you would feel the same about them now? Why or why not? Now, I've got some things that I read an awfully long time ago, and there are things that I loved at the time that I do wonder if I would feel the same way about now. I think an example of this would be Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. I remember reading that and being like, kind of, wow, this is so brilliant and amazing, and I've never read anything like this, and it knocked my socks off at the time. It would definitely have been a 5-star read. I wonder if I'd feel the same now. I'm not even sure I want to go back and read it, maybe in case I don't. Whereas there's some books that I think, I haven't reread them recently, but I know I'm very confident would still be a 5-star read for me. Wouldn't have, there's no doubt in my mind. An example for that would be Beloved by Toni Morrison. It's still so much there in my head that I don't need to question whether it would still be a 5-star read. Not that I rated with stars back then, or Reddington Mystery, A Fine Balance. I'm honestly sure that would be just as much a kind of way up there book for me now as it was when I read it, when it was like a new book. So that is all the questions. What good, interesting questions. Thank you, Courtney, even though I couldn't give a neat answer to all of them. Prompt number 9, of course, is to tag people. Now, this tag has been flying around our corner of BookTube because it's a goodie. So I'm going to tag some people, and for all I know, in the last few days, they've already done it or someone else has tagged them. But hey, one is Margaret Pinard. Another is A Little Book Life. I think that's Leo. Tom of LA Books, and oh, lovely Hufflepuff Discovery. Oh, your name's gone out of my head, although I know it, but you know who you are. I hope you enjoyed doing the tag as much as I did.